We're back with another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 64. I am feeling so good. For the past few days now, I've been just being present and being grateful and sitting in gratitude. And I would like to say I've been finding my groove with God again. Oh my gosh, isn't that great? God built this, huh? No, but seriously, I've been finding my groove with the Lord. And it's been truly an amazing experience. I know at the beginning of this podcast, I've demonstrated I got a super religious or super Christian like aura, and I don't want to say lost my way, but I've been finding a way, and through that find, I've been distancing myself from God and been trying to figure it out on my own. And I realized that that's not healthy, right? Sometimes when we kind of get in the grunt of life, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's getting busy with work or busy in relationships, busy in whatever it is that you're doing, sometimes we forget, and I can only speak for myself, but sometimes I forget about God. Sometimes I kind of put him in the back burner, and I don't really nurture and cater to the relationship that I have with him. And so that's what I've been experiencing for quite some time, as you guys could, hear on this podcast. So, and I've shared that and have been really transparent about that. And I think a lot of it had to do with me questioning and being curious and being actually upset with how Christianity was used to control and manipulate and oppress many groups of people. And being a Black woman, being a woman of Haitian descent, I am one of those groups of people who the Bible have used to condescend and discourage. And so when I think about Christianity, I think about the Bible, I think about relationship with God. I think about all of that, and I got so angry thinking about that, thinking about how human have poorly used the text, have poorly used what was used or what was created to be a source of liberation, but it was constructed in a way throughout history to manipulate and oppress many groups of people. And that really was the driving force to me losing my groove with God. So I've been trying to just kind of figure it out on my own, trying to explore other religions, other avenues. I was at one point really interested in looking at like psychic readings. And here's the thing, I'm not opposed to that. I don't think that's entirely evil. I feel like there is still some beauty and strength and liberation in different alternatives to finding source, to finding power. But I realized I was looking at all these other things and I wasn't looking to God, period, right? I think when we get confused about who God is and we just use his, like, the tools or like different things, right, different resources, but we don't go straight to the source, then it just, you're still blurry, right? You're still, at least for me, and it's different for everybody for sure, but I still felt blurry. I remember just right before the new year, I was still searching for something and trying to find an answer, trying to find clarity and steps to what is next for me in life. What is my next phase? And feeling disconnected from God, I was looking towards this psychic. There was a psychic reading that I just kind of bumped into as I was driving in downtown. I don't think it's downtown Houston, but somewhere in Houston, where I was stopping at another place, and then as I was driving on another street, I saw this little quaint home, just like this caricature type of home. It's like one of those homes that's like in Hansel and Gretel, like those. Is this a house? It looks kind of creepy, but I was so intrigued because all of that stuff truly fascinates me. And so I'm literally slowing down, rolling down my window, peeking through in my car as I'm driving so slow on this street, looking at this home, this caricature type of house. And it looked like I was like, about to do a drive-by or something. Like, I was looking into like, what the hell? That was really rude of me. But I was just so intrigued by it because the decor outside, and it did say something about psychic reading and all of that. So I was just like, ooh, this is interesting. And this is like literally 3 days before the new year. And the lady who is the owner of the home, she saw me and she like popped out of dead ass no fucking where. When I tell you, she like creeped me out. And she wasn't like those, like, I don't know. She wasn't those scary, in the movies how they have like those long nails, bangles in their ears, big ass rat. It's like, who the fuck is this? She didn't look like that, but she had a heavy accent, which kind of fit that stereotype that I saw on TV. And she had this this garment on, and she was just of some descent. Like she was probably Middle Eastern. She was something because she had an accent. And she just was smiling, and like there was like this glare in her eye or something. And I don't want to sound, what is it? Stereotypical, and I don't want to discount the people who do work in that ministry, because I do think it's a ministry, and I do respect it. But I just felt like, okay, so anyway, so her front door, I guess her front door, like the actual door was already open, but I didn't notice that. And there was a curtain instead that was covering the entrance of her home. And so she just instantly just pulled out the curtain, and I saw her, and I'm just like, oh fuck. And I'm not gonna just drive off. I want to see what you gotta say. What's good? Okay. So she was like, come, like she's waving, gesturing for me to come in. And I'm like, I gotta go. Like, never mind, punking the fuck out. And, but she kept on gesturing, and I'm not driving off because in my head I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to be rude. That's rude. And I didn't want to just like park my car and jump in. I was teetering right on the street. Mind you, the street was already a narrow ass street. The way that the roads are, especially some streets in Houston, it is like a narrow street, and there aren't any sidewalks. There's like this low valley or like low dip right off of the street, where if you were drunk and driving, or if you wasn't paying attention on the road, you could fall into that ditch. That's literally right off the street. Like, what the fuck is this? Where is the agriculture? What? So this is the street that I'm on, and I'm teetering on. The car is still on. It's a two-way street, okay? So there's cars coming on the other side in this tight-ass street, and I'm over here peeking through, debating with myself if I should speak to this spirit worker. And I'm just like, okay, what the fuck am I gonna do? Mind you, so like I said, there isn't a street, so it's not like I could just park on the curb. I would have to maybe park in her garage, and her garage is like this sandy garage. It just felt like, where am I? Is this still Houston 2020 or 2019? It was just really strange. So anyway, I'm sitting in my car. She gets closer to my car. Like, bitch is in my car, okay? It's like she was in my car, but she was right on my passenger side window. And so I put the window down. I put my car in park, and I'm just like nervous because this is still new territory. Though I appreciate the work that this is, because I'm still very open-minded. I still have grown to be open-minded, and I still do genuinely believe that there's different avenues that people take to find God, and I think that's okay. So I'm totally open to that. So anyway, as she was getting towards my car, I'm looking at her. She's like, I noticed you've been driving here a couple of times. I've noticed you. And that was true. That was a true statement, because it was like my third time, that same, like within that hour that I drove past that home, her house, her business house, whatever. So I'm just like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I'm sensing good vibes from you. I'm sensing good vibes. And but I could tell that you're a little, what'd she say? I could tell that you're a little uneasy, and I encourage you to come in so I could, set you up for, like, I could give you a reading and you could be set for the new year, blah, blah, blah. And in that moment, I was already like about to see a friend, like within the next hour. And I didn't want to get, how you're already in the zone with your plan to see someone, and now you get sidetracked, and it's like, do I really want to see that person? Like, that's how I felt. So I already had this plan. Like, when I have a plan in my head, I don't like anyone trying to mess it up. Like, I like to plan you in before, you're a part of my agenda for the day. So I'm like, no, I can't. Maybe I'll come afterward. Like, I'm still just, and I was showing her, I was expressing to her my hesitation. I was saying, yeah, I don't know. So this is not evil. This is what I've been doing since I was young. This is inherited. This is in my family and all this stuff. And then she was saying how, this is, and I was saying my just hesitation, because I'm like, this is your home. Like, this is, I don't know, like, just trying to, I didn't say it, but I was pretty much alluding to the fact that this is your home. This is your territory. Meaning, if you wanted to hide me in your storage room, you could. Like, this is, I don't know the exits in this place. Like, this is not a full business home. So that was my hesitation. And that's no shade. It was just like, I don't know. Anyway, I eventually drove off. She gave me her card. I still have her card. And a bitch still might use it. It's like I don't know. But like I said, I'm not opposed to it. But all in all, what I'm saying is, as I was very interested throughout the past few months, very interested in different alternatives, different ways to find clarity, to find guidance, I guess I was not still getting it. Like, I wasn't receiving what I needed. And I'm not saying I'm all the way there yet, but since I've been telling myself, you know what, let me just go back to church. Let me just make this a little bit more consistent, or make it consistent. And I know the new year just started, but that's been the start of the new year for me. I've been going to church. I've been just giving myself time to be in the present, to give God glory, to pray. I haven't prayed in a long time, like a formal prayer, and I know there's different ways people pray. Like, you don't have to be on your knees all the time, but I haven't done that in that manner in such a long time. And that has been my go-to. I've been down on prayer, like down on my knees in prayer, prostrated. I've been in that space, and that's what I know to be. And not doing what I know, not doing what I've been raised to do, I guess it just put a weight on me that I didn't realize until I got back with God, until I, finally just walked back in the church and finally opened my heart again to receiving God. And what I can say is, though, yes, the history of Christianity, there's been many times and much just examples of oppression used poorly by those in power, typically white men. And that is true. That is a true statement. There's no hiding of that, and there's no distortion of that. And I think what it was for me was I wanted people to say that. Like, I wanted people to recognize, hey, do you realize how oppressive this has been used to people who look like us, to people who behave like us? And sometimes we don't talk about the real, the way it needs to be talked about. And I feel like I've been the only one, at least in my sphere. Like, I'm sure there's been so many other people who have outside of me, but people who are in my surroundings, I feel like I've been the only one really showing that curiosity. And so I just found myself by myself with this thought, with this exploration to trying to figure it out. And what I'm happy about is that I'm figuring it out with God and not without him anymore. And that's where I want to be, period, And I woke up today and I said, instead of going straight to Instagram, going straight to whatever I usually do in the morning, we'll talk about that some other time. But instead of doing anything else, I said, I'm going to pray today. Like, I'm going to pray before I start my day. I'm going to get down on my knees and put my hands together, close my eyes, and talk to God. Period. Like, I'm going to just do that. And I did that this morning, and I felt good, and I feel good. I feel like, wow, this is a great start to my day. This is a great start to getting into my groove with God again. And I just, wow, where was this? Sometimes we get in our own heads and we forget who God is. And what I've learned throughout this experience is that your relationship with God is your relationship with God. Like, we need to all cultivate our personal relationship with him and not allow other people to dictate what that looks like, and how that should be. God knows us as we are. He created us, of course. And so there should be no shame in coming to him with whatever thought, with whatever feeling that we may have. And that's what I was feeling. I was feeling like, oh man, God, I feel uncomfortable talking to you because I'm so angry at Christianity. I'm so angry about how the Bible was used to oppress us, and how that, like, I was just so angry, and I just didn't feel comfortable coming to him about it, because I was just raised to believe that this was it. This was a God-ordained book, and if God ordained it, then he ordained this oppression, then he ordained slave masters making us feel bad for our native religions, and that didn't sit well with me. And I've been having conversation with some people, like, organically, about religion, about Christianity, about spirituality, all of that. And I remember one person said to me, she said, take what you can and not settle, but like settle within your heart with what doesn't fit right with you, right? So like, how some people would like to, I don't know how to explain that part, but what I'm saying is make it out with God in your own terms and not in the terms with how other people define it to be. And so I never looked at it that way, because people will always say, and I've said this before, like, oh, you can't cherry pick the Bible. You got to just believe every little thing. And I don't agree with that. Yes, you fucking can. Yes, you can. And, or not even just that, but like, we can also read it within the context that it was written in, within the times that it was written in. And that's okay. And we could recognize it for the time that it was in and take out from it what we could apply to our life today, and that's what I'm standing in by. Like, I'm standing in the fact that God does exceedingly and abundantly. And that's what I'm taking. And there's so many other things that I could take from the Bible, but the things that like, I think it was in the Old Testament when they said, slaves, obey your master. And that was used by slave masters towards their slaves. And so reading that today, it doesn't sit well with my spirit. That doesn't sit well with me not wanting to be a slave, like me not wanting to be oppressed by anything. And so, like, when there are different things said in the Bible, written in the Bible, we have to recognize it within the context that it was written, within the times that it was written, and not try to make it applicable today. Like, for example, the book of Corinth, the church of Corinth, which is in the book of Corinthians, this church was a hot ass mess, okay? There was just no order, and Paul was writing about this in the time that it was in. So the women who were showing out in their pearls and in their makeup and in their dress, like, they were coming into the church as if it was a space for them to flaunt their material things. And when I've heard that word throughout my childhood and in my adulthood, it was professed to me that women shouldn't wear earrings. Women shouldn't wear certain colors. Women shouldn't, Christian women, let's put that disclaimer, Christian women in particular shouldn't wear makeup, shouldn't wear red lipstick, shouldn't wear the color red to church, all of these limitations. And people would support that statement by referring to Corinthians. And that's incorrect when you look at it within the context that book was written and who it was written for and who wrote it. And we have to start knowing and reading the Bible for ourselves. We have to know God for ourselves. We have to remember his relationship with you and you alone. Like, we can't allow other people to do the work for us, because sometimes people could steer you wrong. People could project their own morals and their own restrictions and cultural traditions onto you and make you feel like you're not a good Christian. You're not good enough. Oh, if you do that, you're not going to go to the pearly gates, when you know what's in your heart. You know who God is for yourself, and you know Christ died for your sins. And yes, I still believe in all of that. So when you make it a personal relationship instead of making it something that is external and that is controlled by external factors, then you truly are at peace with it all, right? You don't have to sit with things that don't settle with your spirit. And I'm still standing in the strong convictions that I have about women's rights, about women's reproductive rights, about women being able to speak out and speak up for themselves, and not being a punching bag for men, and not being a punching bag for anyone. And growing up, it was not communicated that way to me. And now coming into my own and realizing God for my own and realizing the book of the Bible and the books within the Bible, we have to recognize it for what it was during that time and take what we can in 2020. If you so choose, of course, if you so choose. But I'm just it feels good because I love God, of course. Like, I love God, and I know he's done so many great things for me and my loved ones. And I can't, like, when I was distant from God, I know it didn't feel good, right? But I was still just trying to figure it out. I'll figure it out. But I needed to recognize that my relationship with him is a personal one, and that it can't be dictated by anyone or anything. So me coming to terms with that, and me finally allowing myself, let me just go back to this church that I really enjoyed at one point in time. And I went back and I allowed myself to just be set free from my own limitations and just come to God. There was this awesome preach that my pastor was giving recently, and he said how we need to just come to God. No matter how many times we come to him, no matter how many times we ask for whatever it is, we need to just still come to him, because that is what he wants from us. Like, there isn't a set limitation. There isn't there isn't a quota that we have to meet. There isn't a cap to how many times we could ask God to pick us up from this poor habit again. No, God is here, period. And he is present. He is wanting and needing, not needing essentially, but like he wants us to come to him no matter how many times it takes for us to get it. And even when we get it, he still wants us to maintain and sustain that relationship with him. So when I heard that from my pastor, I was like, wow, that was really, it just hit me right on time. And in that moment, I just like, okay, Lord, let me just go ahead and make this right with you and find my groove with you again. So that's what I've been feeling and finding within myself. And I'm so excited for the newness and the rekindle of my relationship with him. And it just feels great. So finding my groove with God again has been amazing, and I am committed to sustaining that. I'm committed to maintaining that. And yes, there are valleys and peaks in every relationship. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm just going to be forever, I'm going to attend every service. I'm going to pray every morning for this amount of time. No. But what I can say is I'm going to try harder. I'm going to commit to it a little bit more. I'm going to include God in everything, because he's so good. He's so good. So I do want to talk about these niggas. Talk about these niggas. These niggas. Let's transition. Y'all know what it is. We're transitioning. Okay. All right. So so many to go off on. So let's go on a little somber note. This Aaron Hernandez Netflix documentary, my God. No, hello. My Lord, Jesus Christ. Who else are we calling on? Allah, Jehovah, Jireh. Like, what in the world? Oh my gosh. It really pulls my heartstrings when I watch stuff like this. Being that I'm such an empath, or is it empath? Is that how you say it? But I really feel for people. I really do, especially people who have gone through some stuff and people who have not been heard or feel marginalized and oppressed. It's just it really hurts my soul when I see stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, there's this Aaron Hernandez Netflix documentary that is 3 parts, and every part has been just trying on my spirit. Like, oh my goodness. So it gives back history to Aaron Hernandez, his childhood, his rise to stardom, and all of the factors in between that led to his stardom and that led to his demise. And it all stems from, in my opinion, him not receiving the acceptance and the openness that he should have seen around him when it pertains to men's sexuality. Now, considering if everything told in this documentary is true, right? Aaron Hernandez is not here to stand with this, right? He's not here to give his side. So this could all be a lie when it comes to what they said about his sexuality. So I could be totally off, right? But let's just say it's all true. I think that is the stem for how he turned out to be who he is, right? I think there's so many other factors like CTE, like the poor environment that he was in when he left his mother's home after she got with her sister's ex-husband, and he moved to Florida, and Florida has been just a poor obviously, the fuck? Florida is trash. I'm sorry, Floridians, if you are listening to this podcast, thank you for your listen. But damn, everything in Florida is dusty. For like the people, the taxes, it's just damn. Anyway, ever since he moved to Florida, Aaron Hernandez, he was just in the wrong group of peoples, right? That's why it's very important when we listen to our parents. Like, you have to be mindful who's your friend. Who are you hanging time with, right? Who are you spending your time with? Who are you giving your energy towards all the time? Are they good people, like, at their core? So there's that. There's so many factors. But I think ultimately it stems from him being uncomfortable with his sexuality. Now, I don't know if it was a full-on I feel gay or I am gay type of thing, because the man who he had sexual encounters with throughout his childhood he identified himself as a bisexual. So maybe Aaron Hernandez felt that same way about himself. He does have maybe the cover of a female fiance, and a child. So I don't know. He felt full on gay or half gay, whatever that looks like for him. But he had sexual encounters with men. And growing up in a homophobic household where his father, who was Hispanic, he had strong cultural traditions and very much so homophobic ways, and that's nothing new. It's not anything new. It's not limited to a certain ethnic group. It's not limited to a certain race. That is common, and that's where the sadness lies for me. Like, I just think about so many people in my surroundings who look like me, who come from the same background, and who may struggle with their sexuality, who may struggle with coming forth, who may struggle after coming forth and not being accepted by the people who raised them. It's just so sad that so many people within that community have resulted into dying by suicide, into just taking their life, taking their heads off, literally, and feeling like there's no other way. There was another football player who was in the NFL who identified as a homosexual, and he, instead of bringing light to, like, he didn't want any attention to be put on him for not having a girl. So what he did was, it's very meticulous when you think about it. What he did was, he decided to put on a lot of weight. He decided to just get, shabby looking, hair all out, super weight. Like, he was a big ass, like, big man, white man. And he thought to himself, if I just gain a lot of weight, people will be off my back and be off me, asking me, where's my girl? People will just assume, oh, this nigga looking a hot ass mess. Of course he doesn't have a girl, right? And he was doing that to suppress his actual feelings, his actual homosexual feelings. And he felt like that was his only way to handle it. And being in the NFL, you have an organization that there aren't many homosexual or any really homosexual players who come forth. And I'm sure there are many of them in the league, but they don't feel comfortable coming forth because you have this homophobic aura within that community, and it's common, right? It's common. It starts from childhood. It starts from being in the NFL, in the little leagues, and being in this hard, tough sport, people want to associate that sport with someone who likes men, someone who is gay, and they wouldn't think how would, people like to have this stereotype and this fixed look on what homosexuality looks like and how it should look like. And if you are gay, then you shouldn't be playing these types of sports. This sport is for a man, quote unquote. And it just brings me really sad when I think about people like Aaron Hernandez who decide, you know what, I'm just going to hide it. I'm just going to put this down. I'm just going to suppress it. I'm just going to live a lie. And that lie that he was living, I believe it manifested itself in his impulsive anger, in his just lack of control of his emotions, and him reacting harshly towards people, and him just going crazy, killing niggas, like literally killing people. And I think it all stems from him being at an internal conflict with himself. You don't want to shame your father, who's now deceased, who definitely said homophobic things when he was younger and felt like he had to be a certain way to be a man. And you don't want to be different. You don't want, all of these things. And it just really breaks my heart that, it breaks my heart that I could understand why people will choose suicide than come forward, because the rejection that many people who identify as gay, as bisexual feel, it just really opens my eyes to what we say around people, right? Because we don't know what they're dealing with internally. We don't know if this is their last couple of hours before they decide to take off their life. Like, we don't know. So I just think it's very mindful for us to, especially when we're around children. There was this part in the documentary when Aaron Hernandez's brother, DJ, he was saying how one time when they were younger, Aaron Hernandez and him and their male babysitter, I don't know how much older he was, but he had a male babysitter, and they were all playing hide and seek. And they all went their separate ways. But after some time, DJ, Aaron Hernandez's brother, he got annoyed because he realized it's been 30 minutes, let's say, and no one has come to find him. It's super quiet, and he doesn't know what's going on. And come to find out, many years later, Aaron Hernandez told him or expressed to him, he wasn't in detail, but he know for certain that the male babysitter molested Aaron Hernandez. And it was just an act that it just really hits me, because I think about so many people who were touched inappropriately. And when that's done by someone of the same gender, it's very natural to think, and it's interesting that it is natural to think that, but it's natural to think that, oh, wait, so does that mean I like this gender now? Does that mean I'm now gay? What does that mean for me, And I don't know, like, there was this part during the documentary when Aaron Hernandez was already in prison, and he was speaking to his lawyer. He was saying, do you believe that you were born gay, or do you become gay in your life? And the lawyer was saying he believes that you are born gay. And that was just one simple question that he asked his lawyer. But in that moment, throughout the documentary, they were making it a point that he may have asked that question because of the molestation that he experienced. Now, here's the thing. Some people will say, well, just because you were molested doesn't mean, just because you were molested by the same gender doesn't mean you turn out to be gay. But bitch, can we talk about so many people who, this is so common. I know a couple of people who, in my own personal life, I know a couple of people who has had has been molested by the same gender, and they battled with their sexuality, and they're fucking gay. That's just It's not for me to out them. I know that. That's why I'm not saying any names, but you know how you could just fucking tell. And so because of the lack of acceptance of that, many people do live a lie. Many people feel like, you know what, let me just go ahead and get this girl pregnant, have this baby, and have this life. And I'm not saying gay people can't have kids. Of course they can. But when it's done in a manner when you're marrying to the opposite gender whom you don't sexually feel attracted to, this is like, okay. I mean, you know, do whatever it takes for you to survive. I get that. But I think what we need to talk about more of is the root of it. The root of it is we don't have an accepting environment when it comes to sexuality. You know, for so long we've been just saying, and I'm definitely someone who has shown homophobic feelings and thoughts around the matter, so I'm not exempt from that at all. So this is me being more conscious as well, you know, especially when you come from a religious background. You know, we like to use the whole it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and it's like, yeah, but can we also recognize that everybody's different, and just because you may not fit this box that was pushed upon us and that was manipulated to oppress us doesn't mean that God doesn't love you, you know? So and that's why I'm such an advocate now for people discovering God for who he is and not allowing people and religion mandated or dictated by people to determine their worth and to determine their relationship with God. It just really makes me sad it's like Aaron Hernandez is not the only person. That's the thing. Like, he's an example of that. And I hope that those who do struggle with their sexuality, those who do struggle with just accepting themselves with whatever that looks like for you, I hope that they can find some relief, some support, and that doesn't result in killing themselves. It's just really sad. And I just think about the child of Aaron Hernandez. Like, I just think about the little boy who just was in fear of being who he felt he was, you know, and feeling like he had to be this persona to survive, when we should have a society where we could just be and let that being be accepted, right? We should just be who we are, and whoever that is, there should be an openness and an acceptance for that. Oh, it's just really sad. So if y'all are interested, go ahead and watch the documentary. Just know it's heavy. Like, if we obviously, you know, if you were aware of some of the things in the news about the trial, you know, we knew him to be this, at least what I remember from the trial, like, it was painted out as he was this, you know, this young and careless man who decided to run with the wrong people and get caught up in the thug life, and that resulted into his demise. But when you think about the whole picture, we have to recognize that people don't, like, I don't believe that people just wake up and make bad choices. Like, you don't wake up and decide, I'm going to be a rapist, I'm going to be a murderer, I'm going to be a manipulator, I'm going to be, like, we don't decide that. I think there are events that happen in your life. I think there are people around you who fail you, and that is all factored into the makings of who you are. Now, I do also agree that there are personal choices that we make that are poor and that need to be accounted for sure. But I also want us to consider the whole story, the holistic person, and recognize holistically is not just 1-2, it's a nuance. We have to recognize that it stems from our childhood trauma. It stems from our parents and our surroundings and who failed us. It doesn't mean to point the blame to anyone else, right? But it's to also recognize, hey, I have these lash outs because yes, I can't control my feelings and I need to be a mature adult, but also I don't know what that looks like because around me I've only seen people reacting this way. So of course I'm going to act that way. Of course I'm going to be impulsive. Of course I'm going to be angry and flip tables because I saw my dad do it. I saw my mom do it. That's just a thing that we have to recognize as a whole. So it just really makes me sad. And I just feel sorry for his spirit. Of course, I do feel sorry for all of the victims that were victimized by him, for sure. And what I could also say in the same breath, I feel sorry for Aaron Hernandez. I do. And I think we also, and look, I'm not going to encourage anyone to feel a specific way. I'm not. But I just hope that we can step away from how people should feel about things. Like, if you want to feel sorry for the criminal and those who were affected, I think that's okay. Like, I just, because there was something that was done to the criminal for him to become or her to become a criminal. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't believe that you just wake up or you're just born evil. I don't believe that you just do things without a connection to what was done around you or to you previously. So I do feel sorry for his spirit. You know, I hope wherever he is, he comes to peace. And I just think about that child in him. You know, I think we all have a child with, like, we all carry our child self within us. We all carry who we were when we were younger, and it manifests itself in different ways, right? So sometimes if we haven't healed from a molestation that happened to us, then it may manifest in you not being heard when you were telling your mom that someone touched you inappropriately. And it may manifest this way by you always talking over people, by you always getting angry and getting impulsive when you speak and when you act, because when you was younger, you wasn't heard. So now, being in your adulthood, you're going to do everything to make sure you're heard. You're going to do everything to make sure you're the only voice that's being heard. But the problem with that is that's not healed. That's not being coped with properly. And now you're destroying relationships around you because of what was done years ago. And it just takes a lot for people to come to terms with, I need help. I need fucking help, right? I need to, and yes, I'm an advocate for having your own personal relationship with God. And I'm an advocate for going and finding resources that are more palpable for you and whatever that looks like. So that could look like also going to therapy, also going to counseling, also being a part of a healing group, whatever that looks like, to get to that space of healing, you know. But it takes some time, you know, especially when we have, I think it's dying though, but there's been a long stigma of therapy, of saying, hey, I need help. You know, this is pride that is just built in certain cultural backgrounds. Like, I know Haitians, like, we don't like to say, I need help. We don't like to say, I need money. We don't like to say, I'm hurt, period. And we have to say those things when we feel those things. We have to speak up and speak out so that when we are wanting and deserving of love and of joy, of happiness, of prosperity, we can fully receive it and fully return it to those around us, you know? Oh, so sad. And this brings me to Kevin Hart. I didn't even watch his shit, but I've seen different clips online, and Kevin Hart, he talks about his father growing up. His father was a drug addict, and he was in and out of his life, and he's a little bit more present in his life now in his adulthood. But I could also say that's because Kevin Hart is Kevin Hart, right? We know him to be this mega superstar, this mega comedian, and his father is now in his life, right? And his father is, of course, asking him for money. I'm sure he's supporting his dad. And I think about when he was a child, when he was a young boy, how his father wasn't around, and how it was him and his single mother. And I don't know if he had any siblings. I didn't watch the documentary, so I'm not sure about his siblings. But I believe it was just him. And I know his father was like a Rolling Stone, so he had outside children. But there is trauma in that. But in interviews, Kevin Hart was saying, I'm fine. Like, my father not being in my life doesn't affect me. Like, I'm pretty good and I'm doing just fine. And that's very telling to people who are not doing just fine. People be telling you how they are without telling you, but they're telling you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing just fine. Just because my father's out of my life doesn't mean I'm not fine. Okay, nigga, the fuck? I'm not fine for you. Of course you're not fine. Yo, I know a couple of people in my life, my personal life, who don't have their fathers in their life, who didn't have their fathers in their life when they were younger. And I remember one person, she was saying, that doesn't affect me. I'm fine. You don't really need a dad in your life. You don't really need a father. I'm fine with my mom. And it's just, and I knew at a young age when she shared that with me, that was a lie, Maury. That was a lie. And we don't have the tools, especially when you're young, we don't have the tools to say, you know what? I was really hurt, and this does affect my relationships now. You know, this does make me feel unwanted and unloved, and I haven't found the language to say that. It's just really sad, yo. So anyway, I don't mean to be a burner. But damn, I just wish people could deal with their shit. And obviously I'm not exempt from that. There's some shit I could deal with as well. Like, I was touched inappropriately when I was younger. And the reason why I like to say touch, I don't like to say that, period. I don't really like to talk about it, but like, I don't say molested because it wasn't a full-on molestation. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't penetrated. I wasn't forced to suck dick. I wasn't in that position, but I was touched inappropriately. And it happened a couple times in my childhood, not years. It was not isolated, but a few times that I could count on one hand. And I didn't know how to react to it, right? There wasn't conversations had in my upbringing about sex, about good touch, bad touch, about speaking up if bad touch does happen. So I just kept it to myself. And a couple of years went by, and there was just this big revelation that happened in my family, and I was propelled to share, hey, this happened to me. But I don't know. I don't think, here's what I could say now, being 28 years old and being able to look back at different moments in my life. I could also give grace to my parents and my mom, who didn't handle it correctly the way that it could have been handled. But I also could give grace to the fact that people do what they only know how to do, right? You can't be this this stronghold of protection, of fire, of force when this is your first time dealing with something like this, right? Where is the handbook or manual book for what happens when my child is molested by another family member? What happens, like what to do here? This is step A and step B. Like there isn't a handbook for it. So when something like that happens, I understand how many people on the outside could say, this should have been done. And I can understand how I said that at that age. And I feel for that. And I feel for being the parent in that moment and feeling like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do when this happens? What do I do when my own seed has experienced this? And it's just, I don't know. It's hard to find that language. And that's why I definitely encourage to have more conversations about trauma, more conversations about being in pain and recognizing that criminals and people who just do wrong, whether they're considered a criminal, right? There's a lot of criminals out here who are not criminals in the court of law, okay? And I say that with confidence because there's a lot of molesters out here who have not seen a prison cell, okay? And we have to understand that shit, there's a lot that goes with it. Like it's not black and white. It's not black and white. Everything is nuanced, and it's really up to us to get to that healing. And that's the ultimate responsibility that we could take from anything that was done to us. It's up to us to feel, hey, I need help. Let me go get help. Now, here's a question. Oh, did you get help, mama? Did you feel like, I don't know. Honestly, I've gone to therapy like a few times in one hand. I could count off a couple of times I've been to therapy. And that never came up. Did it come up? No. Another event in my life came up that I was feeling, you know how people have secondhand smoking? You feel the effects of secondhand smoking if you're standing with a friend or someone who's always smoking around you and you're doing it consistently. It affects you even though you're not the one smoking. I was feeling secondhand trauma for someone who endured trauma for many years. And I was experiencing that, and that was holding a weight on me, and I had to just let it out. And it was to a point when I was destroying the relationships around me because of that secondhand trauma. But I never really decided to talk about my own experiences with trauma because I just felt like, well, it wasn't to the extent of the secondhand trauma. Who am I to just go in and talk about my own dealt with this type of trauma? You know what I mean? So I never really thought about it. And maybe that's some homework that I need to explore and do and see how that is manifested in my life. And this is why I have these conversations, to get to these points of realization so that we can understand it's not a them and you thing. Like we all need to sit within ourselves and recognize what was done to me when I was a child. You know, did I experience physical abuse? Did I see physical abuse growing up? Did I see my parents hit each other and I developed a distorted view on love? What does that mean? What does that look like? And how can I make sure that trauma isn't manifesting itself in negative ways in my life? Heavy ass episode, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sometimes we gotta get serious. Hello. Hey, my bad. Damn. At this point, let's move on. Look, it's heavy. It's work. And that's why I say, you know, when I have fallouts with people, and I keep on referring, not keep on, but I do recognize that I refer to the friend who I decided I can't be friends with anymore. I recognize that this is deeper than the surface that ended our friendship, right? It's deeper because she has some work to do within her own self to get to healing. And whether she does it or not, I still understand that we don't have to be friends with people or be in a relationship with people who are toxic, who are still dealing with their shit or still haven't accepted that they have shit to deal with and to heal from. And we don't have to sit there and be someone's savior. We don't, And we could still say, I have sympathy for you. I wish you the best, but I'm going to back off. Like, I'm a head out. SpongeBob, bitch. Like, we could still say that and be at peace with it, So I remember a couple of episodes ago, I talked about me having this savior complex for Boston Bay and how I felt like, maybe my space, like my role in this is to help him, is to assist him. And here's the thing. We can't save people. We can't. Jesus saves. I don't. Okay? Isn't that what Rick Ross says? No, he said God forgives. I don't. Either way, nigga, I'm not Jesus. Hello? No, I'm not. And I just encourage everyone to see in your relationship with people, just because they have their own trauma to deal with and they haven't dealt with it, don't let that guilt you into thinking, man, I should help them. Man, I should be their savior. No, you could do what you can. But if it comes to a point where your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your whole well-being is now at an expense because of this person and because of this toxic relationship, friendship, whatever that looks like, let that go. Let that go. We can't be responsible for other people's healings. We can't. All right. Moving forward. I want to end off with my thoughts on Elizabeth Warren and her attack on Bernie Sanders. So the recent presidential Democratic debate, there was a question posed to Bernie Sanders asking him, did you say you can't see a woman being president? He vehemently denied it. Yet Elizabeth Warren, she was asked, how did you feel when Bernie Sanders said a woman can't be president? Like, what the fuck? Didn't you just ask me that question? I told you I didn't do it. So that was weird. But one person is lying and one person isn't. And I don't believe Elizabeth Warren. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm a woman who doesn't believe this woman here. I don't. And it's been brought to my attention that, and I've known different things, like I know there was some controversy about her being a Native American or not. Like, bitch, you white, but okay. So I just didn't really take that too seriously, but then it adds up to me not seeing her as a credible person. You're not a credible person if you are lying about your ethnicity and capitalizing off of it when that's not, bitch, you got like maybe she has 2% of Native American. Okay, you're white. Like, let's just stop. Let's stop. Like, this whole one drop of ethnic blood doesn't mean you're ethnic. It doesn't. Especially if that one drop is 2%. Okay? Especially if that one drop is if that one drop still doesn't make up for how you look physically. If you look white, you're white. Stop. That's it. That's it. So anyway, and there was some controversy about with her. So she apparently, and this is all coming to light. I never knew this. So this is me learning it now. But apparently she was a long-time Republican. Okay? She just became a Democrat like a year ago, pretty much. And she's, now super strong in her democratic ass ways. But it's like, okay, which one is it? You were a Republican for so long, and that doesn't mean that you can't evolve and change your mind and change parties. Maybe you can, but I just don't know if you're credible anymore. So now that makes me feel like Bernie Sanders didn't say that. And here's the thing. I feel like even if he did say it, I don't think he meant it in a way he doesn't agree that a woman should be president. Like, I don't think Bernie Sanders mean that. What? I believe Bernie Sanders is a credible ass man. I just think because he is old, and yes, everyone up there is around the same age from each other, even Trump. But I think because Bernie Sanders look old as fuck, this nigga look like a dinosaur. Sir, are you extinct? He looks old. So I think that's the only thing that's going to hurt him, really. And that has been hurting him. But aside from that, he has been consistent in his politics, and that has made him be a credible and a strong force in this race. So that is why I am really for what he's saying and believing that he's a genuine person. But I think because he's an old looking man, that's really going to hurt him. And I don't know if that's going to take him further in this race. I do think that Bernie Sanders probably said he doesn't see many people voting for a woman because many people in America may have sexist views, right? Many people in America may believe that a woman can't hold the responsibility of office, and he may say that, and I think that's okay to say. That's just him telling what the status of our culture in America is. That's him showing that. That doesn't mean that he believes that for himself. So that's what I think it was. And I think Warren took that and ran with it, and she was like, you know what? I'm going to use this against him, and he's going to fall out the race. So that's what I don't like. Like, I know it's politics and we have to understand people fight dirty. But no, why? Why do we need to twist someone's words and not give it the context that it needs? Especially when Bernie Sanders, like the debates, if y'all been watching, they don't give people 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes to expound on their idea and their answer to a question. You're given 30 seconds. So even if Bernie Sanders did say he believes or he doesn't see a woman being president, he doesn't have the privilege or the opportunity in that moment to explain himself. Okay, you're only given 30 seconds, so you have to give your key, your buzzwords to get the right people on your back. So I think that's because, he had no choice but to deny him saying that, and maybe there's other opportunities with a longer and larger platform that he could utilize for him to clear up what he meant, because I truly don't believe that he believes women can't be president. I just think that he's talking for many people in America who may not believe the power of a woman and may not believe a woman could do it. But that doesn't mean that Bernie Sanders believed that, So Elizabeth Warren, blah, not feeling you, and I'm over it. I do want to talk about one last thing. Okay, so Beyonce released her new Ivy Park athleisure gear, and every item is bomb.com. But what I don't like is the fact that they didn't put enough in stock. Like, what the fuck? Like, did y'all make the clothes? Like, what? How was everything sold out? That's number one. I do believe that was a marketing scheme, them garnering and probably raising the prices of each item or certain items. So whatever. I'm not the type to really stay up all night trying to buy clothes. Like, really, I just recycle what I have and make it work, bitch. That's what I do. If anything, what I do stay up all night or make sure I get tickets on a specific day is when I'm buying tickets to go see her in concert on tour. Okay? Not no fucking clothes. It ain't that deep. I'll find another Adidas so, fucking gear to wear. But there's been a lot of controversy about Beyonce exclusion of plus size. And here's the thing. I don't know. Like, I do think it's messed up that there isn't maybe a large range to choose from for the plus size community. But how plus size are we talking? Because I do wonder, are plus size people who are complaining about this, are they like to the point where it's considered obese and they're feeling like Beyonce should have clothes that fits me? Or are they like kind of thick and there's not enough size for kind of thick? Now, I was trying to do my own research and trying to figure out how far in size do the clothes go? But because it's already sold out, they don't even show you the size. So I don't know. And maybe in this next batch of stock, the size will increase. But what, and I hope I'm not being insensitive. I don't know. I just think not every fashion house, fashion line, I don't think every one of them will have certain sizes. And I think that's just, it is what it is. I just think that's the right of the fashion designer. Maybe they don't see this outfit looking right on a super, and I'm talking about super, I'm talking about my 400-pound life size people. That's what I'm talking about. So you gotta get your clothes fucking man-made for that. Like, okay, please, I don't know. But if it's something where you're kind of thick, you're not 400 pounds, but you kind of thick, and your size is not shown for, this line, Ivy Park, then that is a problem. That is a problem. But I just think when you have uberly sized people complaining, it's just like, oh, you have to understand that there is a level of discrimination. I don't know, like, discrimination is wrong. I get it. But I also think that is just kind of obvious. I'm not trying to be, I don't know how else to say it, but I'm specifically talking about those who are 400 size plus life on TLC type of big person, okay? Of course, House of Darion as Ivy Park won't have clothes for that size. That's all I'm saying. And there's specific clothing stores that are dedicated for that size and that size only, What I'm saying is, I'm not going to go to Elaine Bryant and be like, why the fuck y'all don't have size? Like, but then I could also, here's the thing, when I'm talking, I'm super introspective. So I also understand that is my thin girl privilege. So I recognize the privilege that I have, and that it's the same thing with black people and white people, how black people would say, Black History Month and, HBCUs, and then white people would try to counter it. Why don't we have White History Month? Bitch, you've always had white. I get it. I do get it. But look, I'm going to end it here. Look, I got to go. I gotta go. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Please continue to like, rate, subscribe, and leave your comments and share. I want this podcast to be heard by many groups of people, diverse people, and just continue to tell a friend and support. Make sure you also follow God Built This on what's called God Built This Pod on Instagram. So go ahead and check me out there, and I will check in with y'all next week. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.